All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Past midnight on Yates Street, the signal hums low. The static's alive and the shadows glow through the glass of the control room door. Something whispers, we've been here before. Old footsteps echo the real size. The red on air, light flickers and dies through the hallway. A chill creeps deep. CKTB never sleeps. Ghosts on Yates Street.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, and of course on Tuber and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM here in St. Catharines, streaming us around the world on classic1220.ca. Tonight we turn our attention to one of the darkest and most heartbreaking chapters in U.S. military history, X Zone Nation. The contamination of drinking water at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. Now, between 1953 and 1987, countless Marines and their families were unknowingly exposed to toxic chemicals in the base's water supply. Chemicals later linked to devastating illnesses and even deaths. My guest tonight lived at Camp Lejeune. Their family has suffered health complications believed to be connected to the toxic exposure. Their story is one of loyalty, heartbreak, and resilience. This is a conversation about accountability, justice, and the human cost of service. X Zone Nation, what makes this hour and this show more important to me is that it affected a good friend of mine and a good friend of the X Zone Nation and those who watch the X Zone Broadcast Network. I'm talking about our very own Patrick SIMS, who is an evangelist and the lady behind Man of Mysteries here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Joining me now is Ms. Patrick SIMS. And Patrick, welcome to this side of the microphone.
Thank you.
Patrick, you and I have talked about Camp Lejeune before, but this is a story that doesn't get any better. There's been no accountability. There has been nothing. People are still sick because of it. People are still mourning because of this. And I thought it very important in today's society that with everything that's going on around the world, that listeners around the world should know that there's something horrific that has happened right beneath their noses, and nobody's doing a damn thing about it. So I'd like to focus on this tonight. And before we do that, I congratulate you on your great show, Man of Mysteries, here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. And you've got a lovely family, and they're loved very dearly. So please give them our best.
I will. Thank you.
Patrick, can you start by sharing when and why you were stationed at or living at Camp Lejeune?
Yeah. Well, Ken and I met in junior high school, and we were living in Meridian, Mississippi, and he just always felt like he wanted to get out of Meridian and he wanted to join the Marines. In fact, he did that before he actually even finished high school. And my mom is the one who signed for him to go. His mom wouldn't do it, so Mama did it for him. But he went on to get more education anyway. But the ironic part, Rob, is that he wanted to just have a better life, and did not know that us being there was going to cause us issues for the rest of our lives. But we were stationed there in 1977. In 1977, he was actually there for 3 years. I was only there for 6 months. And so the 6 months that I was there, we actually lived off base, but was on base a lot because Kachanta was conceived there. So my OBGYN doctors were there too. And that's where, our friends, if we were going to our friends' houses and, for a party or what have you, and just everything was on base for us. So we were there quite frequently. And he sent me home though after 6 months because I was pregnant and because he was a Marine. And they really meant it when they said if we wanted you to have a wife, we would have issued you one because he stayed in some type of training. And so he was going to be gone again. It was if it wasn't jungle training or some other kind of training, but he was going to have to go to New York, I believe it was, for cold weather training for 3 months. And he didn't want me there, even though we had good friends. And since I was pregnant, he's like, no, I'm taking you home to mama. But it doesn't take that long. 30 people that have been there for 30 days have had ongoing issues. But the thing is, him being there, he was actually like not a carrier in the sense like it was genetic, but because of what could happen with his DNA could still affect our offspring. And for the longest, I thought that it was only him. I didn't learn until 2020, April of 2020, and I was doing more research because the VA had sent me a 38-page letter and denying everything. My husband had a plethora of illnesses and diseases, and they just denied everything. And I was just heartbroken sitting at my table, and I thought, okay, what can I do? So I researched for 6 weeks, and I spent 4 to 8 hours, sometimes 12 hours a day. There was one time where I took like 2 or 3 days off because I was just so mentally drained and exhausted. So I sent them back a 76-page letter for everything that they denied. I denied their denial. And so I had the proof, well, from my research, and that just kind of extended it. But in June of 2022, I actually was able to meet with a Marine Corps law judge, and for an hour. Wasn't supposed to be that long, but as God would have it. And I know without a lawyer, I know that I won that case. I had pictures, I had letters, everything that they were saying that was needed. I had it all. They were saying you need a letter from a doctor. I had 7 letters that his VA doctors they wrote letters saying that it was most likely the issues that he was having from Ken had, heart failure, kidney failure, just all of his organs just began to fail. He had so many surgeries from 1989 till he passed. He was in hospitals every year.
Wow.
Where from we would be there for a week, sometimes 2, one time 3 months. And the job that I worked, I had accumulated a lot of time. And so wherever he was, I was there. And my father and mother lived in the same town that we lived in. So the kids were pretty responsible anyway, teenagers. And so when we were in Jackson, Mississippi, I was there. And the beauty of it is there's so many times that if I had not been with him at these hospitals, he would have died before October the 2nd of 2018 because of so many different things that happened. He actually did die at UAB, and they wanted me to pull the plug, as they say, because he was not there. He clearly was not there. And so the specialists were telling me that it was going to just be so much money. But my family came up the next day. So what they did do, after he coded, they found a faint pulse in his wrist, and so they put him on the ventilator. And I'm glad that they did. They put him on the ventilator, and during that time, my mother and my my father and both of my brothers, my daughter, Camellia, Jara at the time was like 2 years old. And they were there. And Ken's sister, Katie, they all came. And my baby brother said, Ken is up there fighting for his life and we have to fight too. Well, I was going to fight anyway because he told me before he passed out, before he told it, that it wasn't his time. And he said, no matter what they say, it's not my time to go. And this was October of 2003. And so I was remembering that. And so when they approached me with that, I was really glad to hear my brother say no, and with tears streaming down his face, that we got to stand. We got to stand with him. And so, and that was what I told them, that you do what you can do, and we're going to do what we can do, which was praying. I fasted for 3 days while there, fasting and praying and just believing God. And Rob, on the third day, he rose. The doctor said he took himself off the ventilator. Nobody was expecting that. Nobody. And he was just amazing. And then that was a Wednesday. And so the different specialists contacted me and they said, well, he's going to have open heart surgery on Friday. Now he's just back on Wednesday and he had to have dialysis before the surgery. And they said, but, because if he doesn't have it, then, he's going to be out of here. And I just said, God, I don't believe that you allowed him to come back just for him to be gone from the world. I don't believe it. And he didn't. That was 2003, October. And he didn't pass until October of 2018. But we went through so much at all of these hospitals, at all of them. And as I said before, it was every year. But I would always be there to be a voice for him. But mind you, he spoke for himself. He didn't. His body betrayed him, but he still was in his right mind for the most part. There was a time where that was a fight too, because of so many different things that had happened, especially after he had the brain surgery. They really didn't know really what they were doing. We were in Meridian, Mississippi, and they removed a few pieces of the I forget what they called it exactly, that was embedded in the occipital area of his brain. And they were supposed to send it to the Mayo Clinic to be tested. But every time I would ask the doctors about it, he had an excuse about it. And so I realized that, hey, I got to get him out of this hospital for more reasons than one. And when I went home to pack so that we could leave Meridian and go to UAB, because that's where he had the transplant, and they really knew him.
All right,
better.
Patrick, stand by. We've got to take a break here. Exonation Patrick Sims is our guest, www.mannaministries.net. And you can listen to Manna Ministries live every Friday, right here on the Exxon Broadcast Network at, 4 p.m. Eastern. And it's available on Facebook, YouTube, a whole bunch of other platforms, and X. We'll be back on the other side of this break with this very important story that needs to be broken, and we have to get people to seeing what the hell is taking so long in taking care of our veterans. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
When the moon bleeds black on All Hallows Eve, whispers crawl through the dead oak leaves, candles flicker in the graveyard spread, calling spirits back from death. The witches are awake tonight, dancing around the firelight, spells are cast.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about what happened at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune, and that is in Jacksonville, North Carolina. It was the site of a major drinking water contamination event that affected Marines, other service members, civilian employees, and their families for decades. Now, here's a breakdown of what happened, what health problems are linked to the incident, and how it affects those who served there. Well, what happened roughly between 1953 and 1987? There are those sources who use 1953 to 1987. The drinking water at Camp Lejeune and nearby MCAS New River was contaminated with volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and other chemicals. The contaminants included solvents like tetrachloretylene and perchloroethylene, as well as benzene, vinyl chloride, and other chemical byproducts. Some of the contamination came from nearby dry cleaning operations, leaking underground fuel storage tanks, and improper disposal of solvents near the on-base wells. The contamination levels in the wells were reported to be hundreds of thousands of times higher than contemporary safety standards. Now, I'm going to say that one more time because you're probably saying, Rob, you read it wrong. As you notice, I've got my reading glasses on instead of the sunglasses that kind of help me see when I'm doing this show. All right, I'm going to say it one more time. The contamination level in some wells were reported to be hundreds of thousands of times higher than contemporary safety standards. The water from the contaminated wells was used for drinking, cooking, bathing, and other domestic services used by service members and their families and civilian workers at the base. How in the hell did that happen? And then let's go one step further. Who was exposed? Well, anyone who lived, worked, or was stationed at Camp Lejeune or the MCAS New River for at least 30 days between August 1st, 1953 and December 31st, 1987 is considered potentially exposed under many eligibility frameworks put out by the Veterans Affairs Department. This includes Marine sailors, other personnel, civilian employees, and family members who resided on base and in some criteria off base but using the base facilities. Some of the health problems linked to the exposure under the Department of Veterans Affairs and other official guidance. Certain diseases are considered to have sufficient evidence linking them to the contamination so that veterans who served at Camp Lejeune and met service criteria may receive benefits. They include adult leukemia, plastic anemia, bladder cancer, kidney cancer, liver cancer, multiple melanoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Parkinson's disease, and the list goes on. How could the government let this happen? Number one, where was the safety standards? Number two, and number three, why aren't the people who have been exposed, who have the medical documentation, who have presented the information to the Veterans Affairs Department, why aren't they getting what they are due? Why aren't they getting some compensation? What in the name of God is happening? Especially when you have a president who's spending over $300 million on a stupid ballroom that no one other president in history has needed. You're talking about the same president, the same administration who has sent over $20 billion to Argentina instead of taking care of his own. Patrick, when did you first connect the dots to what was happening to the members of your family and to the Camp Lejeune contamination case?
Well, I connected it to Ken back in 2009 because the Marine Corps, the commandant, had actually sent letters out, but it never, because we had moved, it didn't get to us. So he found us through the Internal Revenue Service. So it was about February of 2009. And as I was reading that letter about the exposure, that's when it made sense to me, because Ken, he wasn't a person who drank or smoked or did drugs or any of that. He was always just real health conscious and exercise, eating right. And we just could not connect those dots until I read that. And at that point I knew, and that's when I started doing some research on my own too. But it was still years before I connected the dots for our family, even though the kids were having issues at an early age, but I did not know that they could be affected um, until in 2009 when I did that research. And it was really kind of scary because I had this thing for when I would research, I'd do it for like 6 weeks. But after 6 weeks, I stopped because it was the information was saying that how with that PCE and TCE and the changes, how it can affect the DNA
Mm-hmm.
and it does affect your offspring. It said, not just your children, not just those in utero, but um, your your children, your grandchildren and your great grandchildren. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then it started telling like some of the things that could happen as a result of it. And it just got kind of terrifying. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to stop with this and just start doing what I can to try to get my husband's benefits that he needed. And he died without the benefits. He would tell me that they were waiting, that the government was waiting on him to die. And that's really one of the reasons that he stayed so long, because Ken, he just, as I said before, his body betrayed him so bad, so bad. I have pictures that you would not believe that it is that the same person, because it was like in a country like Ethiopia for a person that had just, was starving to death. And we're talking about a beautiful man, 6 feet 4 inches tall, and just beautiful body build and beautiful complexion. And he just light complexion. And he was darker than what I am because of the toxins that was in his blood, whereas we get 24/7
Mm-hmm.
kidney cleaning. He was getting 12 hours a week. And um, but yeah, it was pretty. When I started connecting those dots, a lot of things started making sense, because Kashanta, our firstborn daughter, Ken passed in the room that we're in right now. That's now my office. But Kashanta was living in San Antonio with her family, and she didn't want to leave her girls. But she got so bad because she was misdiagnosed for one thing, but she had HER2 triple negative breast cancer. And it really, with black women in particular, younger, it afflicts black women the most, like around 40 and 50. Well, she passed in the next room that we now call the Kashanta room. She passed at 38 years old. And that was pretty devastating too, because her body was riddled um, with cancer, her brain, her lungs, just her entire body. And the tumors, more and more tumors were breaking out on her body every day. But both she and her father were just troopers. So I was taking care of both of them at the same time. And because my husband was a dialysis patient, he was in this room. And I closed the vents, and I brought in a heater, and I would dress him warm so that I could keep him warm. Well, her body was so feverish, I had to keep her as cool as I could. So I would have the air on and the vents, directed to
Mm-hmm.
her, even bought an extra AC unit so that she could be cool. So it was so cold in her room that I had to put on a coat, hat, and gloves to go in with her. And of course, come out and take all of that off to come in here with him, because it was burning up. So, I even had a monitor. If I was in with her, I had a monitor in here, and vice versa, so that I could, make sure that they were both okay, because both of them were terminal. and and just to know that 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 was that connection, that Camp Lejeune connection that we for years did not know. I mean, she had issues. My kids had issues when they were young too, growing up. Ken had issues, but what I learned over the years, that a lot of the issues, the medical conditions and diagnoses, and some not diagnosed because they didn't know how.
Hmm.
I learned from a a woman, a nurse who was one of his dialysis. She was a traveling nurse, but she was more than that. She was not a doctor, but she was pretty high up. And she was the one that told me that a lot of the issues that the doctors just could not figure out where Ken was concerned, she said it was, it tracked back to Camp Lejeune. And in the midst of our conversation, her husband was also at Camp Lejeune, and she said that all of his organs cemented, and they learned over the years that when they could not track what was causing his medical problems, because it would just be things that they say, we've never heard of this before, we don't know what this is, we don't understand what's going on. And she said that's because it tracks back to Camp Lejeune, because they were eating, food cooked with it, drinking it, bathing in it, swimming in it. And when I was there, same thing, the water, everything. We went to eat there on the base, all that contamination was affecting us, and we were clueless as to the damage that it was wrecking in our bodies.
Stand by, Patrick. You and I have to take our break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, our guest this hour is Patrick Sims. She is the lady behind Mana Ministries. The website is manaministries.net, and you can listen to Patrick every Friday right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, or on YouTube, or on X, or on many of the platforms that the X Zone Broadcast Network is on. For more information about Patrick and the great work that she does with Mana Ministries, and also the other members of the ministry and her fine, beautiful daughters, visit www.manaministries.net. This case at Camp Lejeune is a travesty, and when we come back, I'm going to tell you about something that I found very strange, and it questions how the government, especially the Department of Veterans Affairs and now the War Department, are actually looking into the camps that they're putting their America's finest in. Do they really know what's going on? Do they really care? Food for thought on the other side of this break. I'm Rob McConnell. Whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be back on the other side of this very short break right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, Tuber, and our good friends at Classic 1220 CFAJ AM right here in St. Catharines, Ontario, streaming us at classic1220.ca.
Candles flicker in the graveyard spread, calling spirits back from dead. The witches are awake tonight.
Twilight's hush, where shadows whisper low, a silver glimmer streaks across the sky, aglow with a haunting melody. The air begins to thrum, an echo of the wonders that from beyond have come. Celestial encounter as the stars align, a tapestry of wonders woven through space and time. From the void of darkness, a chorus sings so bright.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking to Patrick Sims about what happened at Marine Corps Camp Lejeune going back until, what was it, between 1953 and 1987, I believe. Doing the research, something popped up that I find rather interesting. And this is from the Department of Veteran Affairs. A 2024 government study found increased risks for other cancers among personnel stationed at Camp Lejeune between 1975 and 1985. And they give examples of thyroid cancer, esophageal cancer, lung cancer, and breast cancer compared to personnel at other bases. Now, the way I read it is that this problem is at other bases as well, but just not as in significant numbers as in Camp Lejeune. We did send an email out to the Department of Veteran Affairs to get a comment on this, and as of yet, we've received nothing. Also, a mortality study published in 2024 observed elevated risks of death amongst exposed Marines, Navy personnel, and civilian workers. Well, doesn't that make sense? And then it says many legal sources suggest a broader range of conditions may be connected, including infertility, miscarriage, birth defects, hepatic steatosis, which is fatty liver, and neurobehavioral effects. I wonder how many other people who are at Camp Lejeune have no idea why they're sick, Patrick.
A lot of them do not, because there's 900,000 to a million people that were affected. And I actually have a podcast with Voyage Media in Hollywood, and it's a 4-part series, about 30 minutes each. And I was excited for that for several reasons, because ultimately I want to have a faith-based movie about my family's life, as a result of all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also a tool to get the word out there for other people, because they have lawsuits. But after August, I believe it's August in 2022, August the 10th, I think, to be exact, then those who were not signed up were not going to be able to after that time. But it's just really is very heartbreaking, because you watch your family just deteriorate. And at least I know I watched my family just deteriorate right before my eyes, but I knew why. And I thought of so many people that had just clueless, just had no idea why their family members were dying and having all of these issues, these unexplained issues that they have. And one of the things I was listening at you as you were talking about some of the funds. One of the things that really aggravates me is, and I'm a person that we're givers. My mom, my dad, that's how they were. And we have a foundation. My daughter started it, the SIMS Foundation, and it's for breast cancer patients, but also for, the homeless, people in need.
Mm-hmm.
But I get aggravated when it's a fight. My husband served his country as a Marine, and also in the Army. He served them. He had a top secret clearance. He dealt with nuclear stuff as well. And he served his country in the fight. He was unemployable. He was really 100% disabled. I'm still fighting for that. I'm still fighting for my husband's 100% disability. And it aggravates me to no end, where we can pay for people that we have no idea who they are. Like in New York, giving undocumented immigrants. And mind you, I'm not just talking about everybody, because we are actually trying to help a family from Haiti come here legally. So I don't want people to hear what I'm not saying, but it burns me up that you can give somebody who's not working, you don't really know who they are, and you can give $7,000 in cars and places to stay and food and everything. And here we are my husband fought for the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never in the military, but I had a government job. Well, we were contracted by the government. So I had to have a secret clearance. And yet we fight. And none of that makes sense to me. And it gives me issues.
Have you spoken to anyone who has won any awards from the government when it comes to a case brought before them because of Camp Lejeune?
I read of a case, but I haven't really spoken to anyone myself. It just, they do, they admit it without admitting it, and they, act like they're just really trying to do all these things to help. But I do know the Marine that broke it, Jerry Ensminger, he has been fighting. I never would have known about it if it had not been for him. So he has been fighting since. As I said before, that's why we received the letter in the first place. He went to Capitol Hill. He still goes, and he also now has a partner, Mike Partain, and Mike was born there, and Mike had breast cancer from being there, and Jerry's daughter passed from leukemia. In fact, when President Obama was in office, the Janie Ensminger Act, that's his daughter. That is Jerry's daughter that President Obama signed that act for, to try to help and then there was the Honoring Camp Lejeune, what was it called? Honoring Our Pact Act of 2021. And that was President Biden, I believe, that signed that one in. But it's like, okay, we got all these things signed, but what is it really doing for the people? Because people are dying, people are hurting, and it just doesn't make sense to me. It shouldn't take all of that. And I know that there are those who are fighting for us, and I certainly appreciate my lawyers, and I really, really am so thankful to both Jerry and Mike for their fight, because it's because of their fight that the ones of us, the thousands of us that are able to understand and know what's happening to our families, is because of their particular fight. So just saying, it's very, very frustrating, because it's like they are waiting for everybody to die. I'm my husband's substitute, and they need to honor him, because they never did. I got documents, I've got medical records, I've got all kind of proof about so much that happened to him, and how the doctors that they would have would dispute what we had and lie and say. They would say things like, well, Mr. Sims is able to have a sedentary job. Well, how are you going to, when his legs would swell up, to just, he was just in pain, chronic pain all the time, chronic pain, and was on medication, and yet they said, well, he can get a job, where he's sitting at a desk, and but yet you're on medication that's going to make you sleep. And so none of it makes sense.
Have you spoken to your representative from Congress or your senator? And if so, what has been their reaction?
Well, I actually have a letter in one of my files. I actually went to an office here. He wasn't there, but anyway, I did contact one of my congressmen, and they did contact them, but to no avail. Nothing happened.
Why is it what in your opinion is the reason why people aren't jumping on this case and demanding justice, demanding that the Department of Veteran Affairs and the government take this case by the horns and for God's sake, pay the people what they're owed?
Well, a lot of us are, but it's the red tape, the red tape. So some cases we thought were going to be heard before the end of the year, but I know with the law firm that I'm with, that's not going to happen. I know I was reading the other day about bellwether cases where that would actually possibly could speed things up a little bit rather than having to, go to trial. But who knows exactly what's going to happen. But what I do know is that they do have a tiger by the tail, and I'm going to fight for what I know is right until Jesus comes, or he comes to get me, takes me out of here.
Are there any organizations that have been formed by other members of the atrocities that have been committed at Camp Lejeune?
I just know that in Jacksonville, North Carolina, there's a legal office. There's a
Mm-hmm.
legal office there where people could go. But now, I since this is 2025, I don't know that it would do them any good to go there now. But before that, I went, and it actually is on my husband's birthday.
Wow.
And I went. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. There were a lot of people from the area, and they were just, trying to educate them, trying to help them, trying to get them um, in the system where they could at least have a fighting chance. And several of them were, but it's just we're there. And I read somewhere that there's like 408,000
Wow.
cases, but like 3,000, a little over 3,000 has had a little bit of action, and some of those, like 127 of them were dismissed.
All right,
None of
stand by,
those.
Patrick. We have to take our final break. Exonation, if you'd like to contact our guest this hour, if you know of a way that Patrick can be helped, visit www.manaministries.net. We'll be back on the other side of the short break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
With a haunting melody, the air begins to thrum, an echo of the wonders that from beyond have come. Celestial. Down in Thorold where the cold winds sweep, there's a tunnel where the dead don't sleep. Built of stone and sorrow's tears, it's whispered through the haunted years. Limestone walls, damp and gray, hold the cries that won't decay. Strike a match when the clock hits.
Exonation, we're talking about the contamination of water and the illness that it brought to several thousand people at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. And some of the conditions caused by the contamination include leukemia, aplastic leukemia, bladder cancer, kidney cancer, liver cancer, multiple melanoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Parkinson's disease, and the list goes on and on and on. Now, according to the Department of Veteran Affairs, what Marines should know and are the next steps. If you or someone you know served at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1987, here are some practical steps. Number one, determine your service dates and location. Verify you served at Camp Lejeune or MCAS New River for at least 30 days during the exposure period. Number two, get medical records. If you have been diagnosed with one of the listed presumptive conditions or potentially another serious illness that could be related, gather relevant medical documentation. Number three, check with the VA, see if you qualify for disability benefits based on presumptive conditions linked at Camp Lejeune. And let me see, what else does it say? Explore legal claims options. you may be eligible to file an administrative claim or lawsuit under the Camp Lejeune Justice Act of 2022. The legal landscape is complex, so consulting a qualified attorney with experience in this area is wise. Number 5, seek screening and monitoring, even if you don't have a diagnosis. If you were exposed, you may consider enhanced vigilance with your healthcare provider for cancers, kidney, liver issues, neurological symptoms, etc. And finally, maintain documentation of residence assignment, proof of assignment, service, residence on base, if applicable, dates, etc., that will help establish exposure credentials. Well, to that I say poppycock, because our guest tonight, Patrick SIMS, has done all that. And she's gone above and beyond what the Department of Veteran Affairs is asking for. And you know what? Her claim was denied. Why was it denied? What bull reason did they give you?
That 38-page letter that I was telling you about, they go through all the reasons why they disagree with what our doctors have said, why they have their own experts, and their expert opinion is different from my experts, our doctors and all, and so that's their way, that's been their way around it.
But wouldn't it be possible for Ken at the time to go and see one of their doctors to confirm the information that your doctors gave? And why wasn't that given to Ken as an option?
Well, we did.
Okay.
We went to Oklahoma City, but the one that I was telling you about, she's the one that it really was not about helping the veteran. It was about the system. So the way that she wrote the report up, it was not in Ken's favor. It was in favor of the VA and the government, so that they did not have to award him that disability and that unemployability.
Now, excuse me if I'm getting this all wrong, but Ken was healthy before he got to Camp Lejeune, am I correct?
He was.
Okay. He was there during the 30-day contamination period as set down by the Department of Veteran Affairs. Am I correct?
3 years.
Okay. He went and got medical attention. You went and did more than due diligence in documenting everything, meeting every hoop that the Department of Veteran Affairs put up for you to jump through. You went and saw one of their doctors. What am I missing here? Why weren't you awarded the settlement?
Right. You're not really missing anything. His VA doctors said that his issues, all of these issues that he had, was from that contaminated water. His actual VA doctors, they said that. Had letters from them, as well as his civilian doctor, our primary care doctor. We had letter from her, and even from his nephrologist, because just so much. It just went on and on and on. And when he passed, the year that he passed in 2018, he had actually developed lung cancer. We knew that's what it was, but he talked to Camellia because there were things that he just didn't want me to know. He knew he had it. He wasn't going to see an oncologist because he was tired. He said that either God would heal him or he was just going to go on and be with Jesus, because he wasn't going to be cut on anymore. Because he said, you name it, from the top of his head to almost the sole of his feet. He had from eye surgeries and just kidney. We talked about the kidney transplant. He also had to have what they call a nephrectomy. They had to remove the kidney that they transplanted because it swelled up to the size of a Nerf football.
Holy
and
cow.
if it had exploded, it could have killed him. And we were leaving the day before we were getting ready to leave the hospital. I just had this uneasiness about leaving. And the short of it is when they examined him, this is what they found out. So rather than leaving the hospital, he had to have another emergency surgery the next day. So that extended our stay there. So he just, and the year that he passed, from everything going on with him, he fell, broke his leg in 3 places. It was either on his birthday or maybe 2 or 3 days before it. I don't quite remember, but I knew it was in March of 2018. And so he fell again, because that he had fallen too many times, but the last time he fell is what caused his major issues. And I say that that was part of him expediting his death to him after he fell. And because the night that we talked about it, he said that he felt like it was just too much on me, and that he wanted me to continue everything that the Lord had laid on my heart, and that he was just going to go on and be with Jesus, because he felt like it was just taking a toll on my body. But at the same time, he was concerned because he felt like he was not leaving me in a good financial position. And but I told him that I didn't want him to stay here on this earth in all of the excruciating pain, the ungodly pain that he suffered through every day. I didn't want him to stay here like that. And after he got his last denial in August of 2018, he was reading it and I saw his face. That did not help him at all. So he passed in October, and he just felt so disappointed that he knew he was deserving of it.
Sure.
He was eligible. He had worked. None of us, we have worked all of our lives. I've been working since I was 9 years old, getting paid since I was 12. So we are not freeloaders. We're not looking for handouts. We're looking for what's owed to us, what's due to us. That was another thing that I found out just this week. I was talking to a veteran who was actually servicing my alarm system, and he has some aggravations himself, because he said he was telling me about people, veteran. I don't even know how you can call them veteran, because they never actually served the day, but they guess signed up, and in their examination they found something that was wrong with that person's back, and they get 100% disability and never actually served a day. So I really had to, calm myself down, because
Sure.
I was about to just blow a fuse, because it's been a struggle.
Yeah.
My family, my daughter Camellia, I know that from my research, I know that what she's experiencing, her specialist retired her in 2021 when she was like 42 years of age. And she was this ELAR coach, a specialist in San Antonio. And she was awesome at the job that she rendered. She was awesome. But because of what was happening to her body, he had to retire her. And so now she is daily in pain, in chronic pain. And I know that it tracks back to that. And her daughter, as young as she is, college age, she is experiencing things that no person, especially not that age, should be dealing with. It's stuff that I had never heard of. Both of them, there's pages. I would have to read it, and some of it, even reading it, and I'm a pretty good reader, but some of it is even difficult to pronounce what they're dealing with. And I heard you talking about the neuro behavior of things. And I have never said this publicly like I'm about to say now, but my son, my youngest child and only son, he seems to have gotten the brunt of that. He has diagnosis of schizophrenia, bipolar, and ADHD, and it's been a nightmare. It's been a nightmare. But there were things that were obvious it was obvious that there was something, but I didn't know what it was when he was younger. I didn't know. And the older he's getting now, the worse it gets because he won't stay on the medicine.
No way.
On the medicine.
Patrick, as always, time goes by so fast. I can't imagine the pain that you and your family have gone through. I can't imagine it. But I do know that your love for God and Jesus, I'm sure at times has been your crutch, if you'll excuse the expression.
Absolutely.
So so I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight and sharing this information. Hopefully someone listening will be able to help. And you know how I feel about you and your family. You're very close to me, and I thank you very much for everything you do. Through all your pain and suffering, you're still out there with men in ministry, spreading the word and helping others. My dear friend, take care of yourself. God bless you, and I look forward to working with you tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it myself. Thank you so much.
You take
Thank
care
you.
of yourself. All right, X Zone Nation, that's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology. But until then, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.